very special episode once again for Wine with Dr. Woodley Wednesday.
No cat outfits tonight. I feel so
no
sick.
cat outfit. No cat onesie.
That was entirely too hot.
It was way too hot. I agree. Way too hot. But maybe we can get like a summer onesie at some point.
There you go. Yeah.
Onesie. I bet you we can find one. So
I bet we could get some little like hat.
Oh, Tina.
Yes, in the house dropping 1,200 stars.
Tina
like
is
it's
in
hot
Arkansas, but had to drop in and drop off
for payroll.
Love you, Tina. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Angela. Hi, Erica. Oh my gosh. You know what I want to do though so bad right now is just Google summer.
I just made that up, by the way. I figured they exist. They've got to exist.
I mean, everything. There's an app for that. Everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exists, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so excited for this. Thank you so much for joining us once again for a little Q&A, a little wine with Dr. Woodley Wednesday.
We're excited. We're going to be doing this every month.
Wine with Dr. Woodley.
Wine.
They just opened the wine too.
We just opened the wine. Let me show you what we're drinking tonight. So this is a Petite Syrah. And it's called Line 39, and we liked it because it rhymed.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. We're like, cool label though. Check out the label.
See, so this is
really pretty.
So truth be told, I don't know a lot about wine. I love wine, but I don't know a lot about wine. All I know is that I like red wine, and
we're pretty experienced in the $9.99 and under.
Right. So what I like to do is like go into the wine store or the liquor store with the big wine section, and I look at the labels and I'm like, that one looks cool. I'll take that one. This one looks cool. I'll take this one. So that's where we are. And Sarah's dropping 22 stars.
22 stars. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Robin. Hey, Darby. Hey, Anna. Cindy. Hello,
the cheaper the better. I love it.
So,
fun fact about me. So I am a veterinarian, but I actually used to host wine parties for One Hope. So I actually have a little bit of wine knowledge and have a special interest in wine. So random fact of the day.
I love
that fact.
For charity too, which was really cool, which is why I did that as a side gig while I was a veterinarian by day. So yeah.
I love that. When you come to Vegas, can you please teach us how to enjoy
to like swirl the wine and the different notes and like the different layers and
yes.
Robin dropping 500 stars. Thank you, Robin. We haven't even started.
We have to get started before we get drunk, guys.
Yes, you guys. So for anyone new here this evening, Dr. Woodley, would you give a brief intro so that they may all know and love you as much as we do?
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here again. So I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. I'm a holistic integrative veterinarian in the Northern Colorado region, and I'm on a crazy mission to make sure that pet parents across the world have access to holistic medicine. So my specialties include acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, Western herbs, food therapy, essential oils. I just love being able to provide tools and different ways to look at your pet's care. So that way you can help heal them by fixing root problems, but also keep them healthy and happy so that we get cats living to be like 30 years old. So you can find more at thenaturalpetdoctor.com. So
I love that. You so much about caring for cats.
We're working on 40. We want 40.
We want 40.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
bring it on. I'm gonna be
here. We'll see. She's I think 10 or 11. We don't know for sure, but she's got a cushy life. She's living her best life on my desk. So
that is a nice life. This is caring for our cats is that proactive care, and I love that you really kind of throw back the veil on instead of being reactive, being proactive about our cat's care. I love that Rob is here tonight, and he said, "Hey, I heard this is where all the cool people hang out."
Hey, Rob, you're in the right place.
Hello. Oh,
that's
good
an
evening. Hey, before we're going to start taking some questions here in a minute, but before we really jump into it, I think, we were talking earlier about how we get a lot of the same questions. There's a lot of things that really are pretty common issues that we cat people deal with. And I want to kind of kick it to you as you have so much knowledge. What are some of the things that you really hear a lot of? What are a lot of the questions that you get?
Yeah, so some of the common ones to like categorize them. So urinary health is definitely one, and then GI issues are those I would say, and behavior issues, of course, but I want to touch on like the GI issues and the urinary. So a lot of times cat parents are being told like a vomiting cat is normal. Is
Right.
it? Like, why would a cat be vomiting? And so we tend to get stuck in this like idea and this mindset that our cats vomit maybe once a week and that's normal, but it can actually be an indicator that something more serious is going on. It can indicate that their gut health is off, that their microbiome is off, that maybe they don't have the digestive enzymes because for whatever reason, if they're on a inappropriate diet, if they're being fed kibble. And so what I find is that this is a common issue is that if we don't see a symptom too, I'm going to just take a step back. This is why preventative care is so important, is because I actually had this conversation with a client earlier today. She said, my pets are fine. I don't need to do anything additional. And I said, the thing is that we're on this spectrum. I'm always talking about a spectrum of health where we have symptoms over here, right? This could be things like cancer, autoimmune disease, like really serious health conditions, but it also can be a little bit further over towards this end where it is a vomiting, like your cat's vomiting, or maybe they have a UTI, or maybe they just feel a little aggravated, irritated. You're noticing maybe they're lethargic or they don't always eat their food. And down here, we have optimal health where we have inflammation, it gets resolved appropriately because the immune system does what it's supposed to and it doesn't overreact. Now, the problem is we have this space where we don't always see symptoms. And so we think things are fine and then it starts progressing. And I've been there personally with 3 pets. Fine, fine, fine. Bam, cancer. And you're like, where did that come from? And then when we take a step back and we start looking at, oh, wow, my cat was vomiting maybe like once a week, once a month. That's an indicator. It's like the check engine light that we need to take notice. And you can either keep driving, right, and ignore it and be like, oh, we're fine. She'll be right. That's a New Zealand saying, by the way. And you just keep going. She'll be right, And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're on the side of the highway, your steam is coming out of your engine and you're screwed. Your car is done. Like you've totaled it. You've got to buy a new transmission and it's a huge issue. This is exactly like our pets' care and our own health too. So this is why the preventative care things are so important. It may seem like we don't need to do those things, but this is why it's important to try to get our cats on the best diets that we can. Why we talk about digestive enzymes, why we talk about doing tests that check the microbiome to see are things off, how are our pets doing, so that way we can tweak and adjust before we see symptoms. That is key. And so going back to some of those questions, so cats that are vomiting, what can that indicate? What could be going on? This can be a sign of a number of issues, right? It's, a symptom. And what we need to do is we actually need to take that step back and go, well, why is my cat vomiting? That's what I always do. Whenever I work with a patient, work with clients, is I'm always asking, well, why is that happening? Yes, we can use natural remedies to treat the symptom, but if that's all we're doing, we're not going to fix the root cause. And then what happens, right? You finish the supplement and you're like, oh, I don't need to pay for that anymore. And all of a sudden, weeks, maybe months later, your pet's doing the same thing. The cat's vomiting again. Maybe they're peeing outside the litter tray. And you're like, what the heck? Oh, I'll get the supplement because that fixed the symptom before. And so we get stuck. It's essentially a conventional way of looking at medicine, right? Looking at the body where we use drugs to treat symptoms. But so many pet parents get stuck in this trap of looking at their pets and looking at symptoms and asking, well, what natural remedy can I use to treat that? When we should be asking the better question, well, why is that happening? So we can use the natural remedies, right? That's very helpful. We need to get like quality of life is always number one. Let's use the things to help get them like those symptoms dampened down, calm down, help them feel better. But we have to then take the next step to ask, why is that happening? And now how do we fix that? What tests do we need to do? And how can we adjust the environment? Maybe we're not doing the environmental enrichment. Do we have enough litter boxes? Is there something really stressful in the house? Did we just make a move to a new place? Did we change the diet and it's not working well with them? Those are all the questions that we need to be asking. And when we ask better questions, we get better answers and we typically get better results. It takes a little bit longer, but I feel like I was on that treadmill with my pets, and so many cat parents here are probably on that treadmill right now with their own cats. And it's a frustrating cycle. It's super expensive. And there's such a better way of looking at their care and their overall health.
I want to piggyback on top of this, because I do think that there's this great movement that's happening where we are looking at our cats more proactively and from a natural point of view, where we are looking to help symptoms more naturally, so we don't have those side effects, whether it's flea treatments, whether it is IBD issues, whether it's even autoimmune issues. We're looking at trying to treat those things more naturally so that the body can start healing itself. But talk a little bit about the fact that that is still symptomatic care.
Yeah.
The whole point of holistic care is really trying to drill down into the root of the issue. And I think you and Dr. Amaya Espindola are two of the only vets that I've ever met that really recognize how much emotional health plays into physical health.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the past 2 years, like with all the stress in the world, this is something that I've definitely seen a shift with like my patients. And we have all these conditions now that they're tied up in this emotional health mess. And, I we were just joking about it. Like our favorite phrase is, I'm fine.
It's fine.
And I'm fine. It's fine. We'll be fine, And who else here says that? Like, comment, because you're not alone. I do it. Everyone does it. And we go through our lives and we're not like touching base with ourselves. And I know we're talking about cats, but our cats, like this one here, follows me into my office. She is so connected to me. And I know other cats here are connected to everyone here. And that's why the emotional health aspect is so important. Because if we're not clearing our emotions, if we're not diving deeper into why we're feeling that way, if we're not grounding ourselves, if we don't have you need to find a practice that works to release stress. We live in a stressful world. And if we're not able to adjust our stress and fix that, resolve it, or help it, release it, guess who picks it up? The cat. And they're such energetic beings. And what happens is they're like, Mom, Dad, they're not doing well. I'm going to take that in for them. They need some help. And we don't realize it's happening a lot of the time. And what happens then is it manifests as a physical condition.
Right.
And so this is why it's so important. And this is why I love like Jay and Adrian, you talk so much about, and like your house. I tell clients about I'm like, please follow them. Their house is amazing too. Like it's like a cat, like it's amazing. Believe me, the back wall there, I'm working on him. I'm working on like the things, and he's listening right now. I know. He's probably like, oh God.
10 years to work on him.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
But that's the thing. It's so important. Here's the thing. Here's a true story. We were away last week and I stressed, right? Because I'm like, oh God, we're leaving our 3 cats alone. And we had someone coming in. We were gone for 5 days, short visit. They came in, fed them, played with them, spent a few hours on either side. And they didn't stay though. And I was like, oh, it's short, right? The night we came home, like Tico and Kiwi are two of our 3 cats. They got into a fight. And I was like, and the 4th day, I got a text from the pet sitter saying, Moki's under the bed. He's shaking. I don't know what happened. I think he's fine. And I'm freaking out, right? I'm like, Is he blocked? Is he have I go straight to like medical emergency. He's a male cat. And, I think what happened is that they're so used to, I do a lot of work from home. They're very connected to us. They love sitting with us at night. And they didn't have that normal routine. And so that stress turned into redirected aggression, of course. And thank goodness there was no like urinary emergencies, the cystitis issues, because we have 2 male cats. But this is an example of how like the emotional side is so important. And if we ignore it, because it's one of the easiest pillars of health to ignore, it can manifest as a physical condition. And here's the thing, if we didn't resolve that and we didn't recognize that and we didn't adjust the environment, if we didn't say like, well, next trip, let's have someone stay here, we need that. And they need that. What would happen? It could be things like a urinary obstruction. It could be IBD. It could be a gut health issue, right? Inflammation in the GI tract. We know that stress directly causes leaky gut. And so leaky gut is where we get this inflammation in the GI lining. Those tight junctions separate. We get food, bacteria, toxins, particles that shouldn't be passing from the GI tract into the bloodstream. And the immune system goes crazy and mounts this overreactive immune response. And we end up seeing ear infections. We see UTIs. We see inflammation elsewhere in the body. And what we do is we treat with antibiotics. We treat with steroids. We treat with maybe anti-anxiety medications. And we don't actually address the environment and the stress that it came from, which was the root cause of the problem. And that's why we get stuck on that treadmill. And it's such a frustrating, expensive way to approach health. And it shortens our pets' lives, unfortunately.
I think one of the things that most of us cat people really enjoy most is how much we realize how in tune our cats are with us. And what we forget is that is a two-way street, right? Like they're there for us, but maybe we think they're too dumb or actually don't get it when we are stressed, when we are in this chronic cycle of stress. And I think that's why so often we find that the diagnosis that we get from a veterinarian is an idiopathic diagnosis. Like we don't know why, but we're good with the symptoms. And I feel like that's something that you mentioned. Hold on one second. I want to read Denise's comment here because this really hits home, the emotional aspect of it. She said, during a hurricane, I was away 12 days before I saw my cats. They all had to evacuate. When I walked in the door, they all came running and loved on me. They continue to greet me at the door like that to this day. I think we really underestimate how much our cats understand and feel us. And you mentioned emotional health being one of the 5 pillars. For everyone here that may not be familiar with that, can you kind of give a brief overview of what those 5 pillars are and why it's important to pay equal attention to each pillar?
Yeah. So the way I teach health and the way I approach like pet care and how I create treatment plans for my patients is I essentially break it up into 5 pillars. And so the way I want you to think about this metaphorically is like, think about a house, right? We have this beautiful house sitting on this foundation. And let's say you see a crack in the wall, right? And you start repairing the crack and you're like, okay, that'll fix it. And you're like, okay, we go, and you keep going on your day. And then all of a sudden, like weeks, maybe months down the road, you're like, why is that crack reappearing? And you're like, oh, I'll fix the crack. We'll just like, no, just do that. And what's happening is the foundation is sinking and you're completely missing the actual foundation, that pillar that's holding the house up. So when you think about health for your cats, for your dogs, these pillars are the same for both dogs and cats. Is I always start with physical health. Physical health tends to be like one of the easiest to think about. Like we think about movement, exercise. There's the lymphatic system, that's going to help drain toxins. It's going to help cognition. It's going to help keep them nice and lean. It's going to help prevent things like osteoarthritis, inflammation. It's going to help support these other pillars too, because it's helping with emotional health too, directly by engaging with them. So physical health is number 1. Typically the easiest to start doing and the most fun, right? Who here doesn't love playing with their cats? Like oh my God, I love it. I wish I could just literally the ripple rug, prime example. I sit for hours watching. We had a pet sitter come by to show her some of the things for a trip we have coming up. And she was like, what is that thing? And Chico's like burrowing in it. And she's like, what is he doing? And I was like, he loves it. It's so easy. Like we literally, and she's like, is it like just two rugs like together? And I was like, yeah, it is. So
with holes, yeah.
With
yeah.
holes, exactly.
Actually, there's a link in the description if you guys want to check out the.
Every single cat parent here needs a ripple rug. We have two.
Right.
Like best purchase I have ever made, better than a cat tower. So love it. And so physical health. And then the next pillar that we look at is gut health and nutrition, right? The food you feed is either going to be, it's going to help nourish them, or it's going to be the slowest form of poison to them. So that's how I look at it, is what we're putting into our cat's body is going to help nourish that microbiome. When I refer to microbiome, it's this ecosystem of thousands of different types of bacteria, protozoa, fungi that are all working together to help digest the food, help make hormones, help make neurotransmitters. It's interconnected with the immune system. It's connected with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and the nerves and the brain. So it's all interconnected. So if we think about the foods we're feeding, and we're feeding an inappropriate diet or a diet that's high in things like artificial flavors or colors or high in carbohydrates, are we feeding the good bacteria? Most likely not. And that's going to affect the whole ecosystem.
So what you're saying is that nutrition, what you feed your cat, does matter?
It does matter. It does. Here's what I always say. Food is medicine. So, and here's a great way to know if food really matters. Use yourself as an example. So for everyone here, I'd love for you to, maybe don't do this if you don't want to, but if you want to, like, if you don't believe food matters, then I do want you to do this, because I want you to go to McDonald's and I want you to get like the juiciest Big Mac or whatever they have now. I don't know what they carry. Big Mac, French fries, and get a Coke. Get the like massive, like 50-gallon Coke, right? You know, like the, I don't know, the jug size. And I want you to like just eat it for your like dinner and drink that entire Coke. And I want you to sit back and I want you to tap into right here. How do you feel? What's going on in the gut? Are you gurgly? Are you more gassy? Do you get diarrhea? And that's honestly. And then the next night, what I want you to do is I want you to eat a healthy meal. What that could look like is maybe a cooked piece of chicken. You can have a steak. Get a grass-fed, organic raised steak. It's so delicious. And cook up some vegetables, steam them, make it easy to break down just in case there's some like, you know, residual effects of the meal prior. And then I want you to sit back and I want you to actually feel how you feel. But the next morning, I want you to tap into, how much energy do I have? How well did I sleep compared to the night before, where your gut was probably really grumbly? So this is what we don't always realize could be happening to our cats or our pets. They could be feeling gassy. They could be feeling gurgly. They could be, you know, having the vomiting episode after they eat. They might be getting diarrhea from the food that we're feeding. Food 100% matters. It's absolutely ridiculous to say food does not matter. It's the number one thing that's going to affect the microbiome. And we are here for the microbes in our gut. That's a fact. And we don't know, we're learning more about it and how important it is. But if we're not taking care of that microbiome, it's really hard to achieve optimal health otherwise. We can do all the environmental enrichment we want, but if we are feeding trash, they're not going to feel good. We're going to have health conditions develop. And so food is essential, but keep in mind, it is one pillar. It's a very important pillar. And most people focus on that one, especially if there's a health condition. And this is where I find we have limitations or limited results, because we end up just focusing on food and we forget about these other pillars of health. And so that's why it's so important, and why I talk about all these different pillars, because we get limited results if we don't address that entire foundation under the house. If we have one end of that foundation cracking under the house, you can be sitting there patching the wall all you want with a raw food diet, but it's not going to fix it. So that's how I look at that.
So those are the first two.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's keep on
Well,
going.
Let's keep on rolling.
especially since I really want to, and I'm not quite sure, we're still in module 1, but so we've got physical health, we've got gut health and nutrition.
Yep.
Pillar number 2. Pillar number 3 is
Immune health. So this is where intimately tied to gut health, right? We know 70 to 80% of the immune health lives in the gut health. So once again, you'll see all of these pillars are tied together. They are all interconnected.
they're like progressive too. I love
They
that
are.
we take it from the common sense, like physical health, right? But then what are we feeding? And then what is it? What does that look? What does this look like?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So immune health. So what does that entail, right? So these are the white blood cells, the red blood cells, the immune cells. These are the things that are responding to like foreign things in the body to inactivate them and remove them. And so if our immune system's not working right, this is where we can see things like autoimmune conditions. So IBD is an autoimmune condition, very common in cats. We can see cancer. We can see allergies, an overreaction to maybe food sensitivities. So this is where the immune system has gone wrong. Very common in a lot of cats, right? We see a lot of these conditions, and it comes down to an immune system. So what can affect immune system health? This is where over vaccinations. So this is where it's so important that we're talking to the veterinarian and talking about the benefit to risk ratio, right? Like, is it worth giving this vaccine? I have an indoor cat. What is their exposure risk? Are they going to a cattery or a kennel for boarding? Are they going out of the home? Are they indoor, outdoor? These are all conversations and questions you should be asking your veterinarian every time before they give a vaccination, because each pet is different. Each pet is an individual. And so that answer is different for each pet. And that's why having those questions, feeling empowered to be able to know what to ask and what to ask for. And maybe it's something where you can do those vaccine titers too to help them and ask for that. If that's something where you are getting into a conversation with the vet, like, let's run a titer and see. That's always an option, or it should be always an option. I know not every single veterinarian will run that, but it's a question you can ask. And when you know that, we can do better, right? That's why education is so powerful. So food will affect immune health, vaccines will affect immune health, medications will affect immune health, toxins will affect immune health. And so this is where looking at the entire environment, and that's which is another pillar of health, all these things are interacting together. And if we solidify those foundations and we know to avoid certain things, we optimize diet, we're optimizing digestion, gut health, that's going to support that healthy immune system that's so closely tied together. That's where we see optimal health for our cats and less likely to have chronic illness, chronic health conditions, and lots of vet visits.
And isn't it interesting that there's so many things in our environment, like we can't escape toxins.
Nope.
Yeah,
No,
right.
we live in a toxic world. And,
Right.
I think, and that's very important to recognize. So, I mean, so that we've talked a lot about emotional health. So emotional health is another pillar, right? And so that's intimately connected, like I talked about, gut health, connected to the brain, stress levels, managing, the physical health, environmental enrichment. And then that final pillar, so the fifth pillar, is environmental health. And this is where once we know about the toxins, it can be scary, but I never want it to be scary. I want it to be something where we now know so we can do better. And I look at my journey personally with my 2 cats that had aggressive GI lymphoma. I had a German Shepherd that had a brain tumor, and I didn't recognize years ago how serious this was. And so I didn't do the things I know now to detox the body, to take, wipe the paws down, to do detox paths quarterly, like use supplements, use the broccoli sprouts, use the milk thistle. Like there's so much we can do now to help protect them. So just because we live in a toxic world doesn't mean you're doomed, doesn't mean you have to develop cancer, doesn't mean you have to develop disease, because when we know better, we can do better.
Exactly. And I mean, you think about like we said, we can't escape toxins, right? That we live in a toxic world, but our cats that are inside, there are so many things that we can do, like getting rid of the chemical household cleaners, like not putting in your little, to reduce that toxic, like no more plug-ins, no more aerosol sprays, and all the things that we use. Candles. I mean, this was like the hardest part for me. Like, I love the smell of like bleach. I love candles. I love the smell. Plugins in every room. Like, it was like, I love it. Was very, very important to me. Now, like, I mean, we do still complain when we walk in the house after we've been gone for a while. It's like, it smells like an old house. Like,
I get it. Yeah. I thought that way today when I walked downstairs. I'm like, oh, that's the cats, but it's so much, like, I will never wish going through what we went through with 2 cats with aggressive GI lymphoma and the stress of that. 1 cat passing away within 2 weeks of being diagnosed on emergency. We had to make a decision. And the other cat going through 6 months of chemotherapy. Like, it is, going through cancer is one of the worst things other than seizures. I have to say, going through that with my dog with a brain tumor. So I can totally relate to pet parents. Like, the stress of that, I will do anything. Like, I will have my house smell like a cat house, because I'm like, I don't want to potentially risk anything that could affect the microbiome, that's going to stress the cells, create chronic inflammation, is going to affect the immune system, it's going to affect liver health. It's not worth it to me now. And it's, and here's the thing. There's a lot of things you can do. And sometimes our cats don't always want to do the things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can relate to that too. And so this one here, like, she's not always the easiest patient. And so it's one of those things, though, when we know, though, then, okay, let's make sure we are enriching her environment. We're playing with her. What are the foods that she likes? What are the ways that we can get some supplements into her to support her as she ages, because she's a senior cat. So then you can use some stuff. It may not be every day, but that's okay. That's where pulse therapy and using supplements can help with a little bit. We don't always have to do stuff every single day. So we do the best we have with what we have, right? And that's really, really important. And don't allow yourself, do your best to not allow yourself to get really stressed out about not being able to, like, implement all the things. Right. And that's a common stressor for a lot of cat parents.
We see it all the time. We see it all the time, where it's like they're stressing so much about their cat that they're
making it worse. Yeah. And I've been there. I totally get it. So I totally get it.
I was going to say a couple.
Yeah, let's do some of those questions, because I know they relate.
I know. So Leanne asked, what are titers? And a titer is, Dr. Katie.
Yeah. So a titer is essentially a blood draw that we do to assess the amount of antibodies that are going to show up. So say we do a panleukopenia vaccination. So we can actually do a blood test to see, does our cat have antibodies that would protect them if they came into contact with that virus? Wow. So if they have the titer, so we say like positive titer, so they're registering, they have antibodies. If they have antibodies, most likely their immune system will mount an appropriate response to protect your cat. So what that means is we don't need to vaccinate them, because if we give them a vaccine, it's going to overstimulate their immune system and can potentially lead to things like autoimmune disease or, increased inflammation in the body. So that's the power of using titers and asking your veterinarian for those rather than just doing the vaccine.
Yeah, and I want to say, I believe it was Dr. Lisa Pearson, like the pioneer of cat health, that said that she did a titer on her cats, literally got their initial vaccines as kittens, and did a titer when they were 18 and they were still protected. Never got another vaccine. Like, that's how important it is. And that this coming from us guys, like, we have a cat that we allowed to be vaccinated again 2 years after his initial vaccines. And he lives to this day with an autoimmune disease, simply exactly what Dr. Katie Woodley is saying right now, like literally lives with an autoimmune disease because of us allowing him to be over vaccinated.
Here's the thing. This is the hard part with titers. And I saw Linda mention Dr. Rob Protect the Pets. I don't know if he's actually I don't think he's taking any more people. So who I'd recommend is Dr. Jean Dodds with HemoPet. And the reason why I really like her too. So a lot of traditional vets will send their lab work to places like traditional labs like IDEX or Colorado State University is one that we used to send our lab results. It's right down the street from me. The problem is that they'll give you ranges. And so if it's not in the range that they say is safe, they'll say that it's not protective enough, which is false. Because with our immune system, we have two different like areas of our immune system. And we have this amazing group called memory cells. And what they do is they're kind of like hiding out where you don't always see them. They're just kind of like back in the closet, right? They're just like, I'll just be back here where it's quiet, hanging out, living my best life. And what happens is say like your dog or your cat gets exposed to one of these viruses and they're like, wait a sec. I know that. What's that? And they're like, we got to go do the work. And they come back out, they mount an appropriate immune response and they clear the virus. That's a healthy, normal immune response. The problem is titers do not test for memory cells. So it's not actually checking that side of our immune system. And so this is where if there is any level of antibody, your cat most likely, we can't say 100% because we just don't know, but more than likely, I would say probably 99.9% will mount an appropriate immune response because of the way your cat's immune system set up and will clear it.
Part of a good conversation to have with your veterinarian also when it comes to vaccines is the efficacy of the vaccines, because you cannot have a 99% efficacy of these vaccines. I just think people are very scared of the risks and not understanding that there's such a powerful mechanism there.
Yes, the immune system is incredible. It's so amazing. Here's the thing, like our bodies are not trying to kill us.
Right.
That's the thing. So and this is especially like my husband has an autoimmune disease and we've had doctors just be like, suppress the hell out of it. And that's how you fix it. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, here's the thing. Something is telling us that his body is overreacting to something. He's had like 300 vaccines. He used to be in the military in New Zealand. And so we have a really good idea of where things went really wrong. And so if we were to just say, well, let's suppress it, like that misses the point, right? That misses the root cause. That misses why the immune system's going haywire. So this is where I like Dr. Jean Dodds because she also does her PCR and the testing at a more sensitive level to identify if your cat's fine. And she's also, if we pick up an antibody, you're good, like you are fine. And so it's a lot more sensitive than some of these other traditional labs that a lot of traditional vets will use. And you can have anyone send lab work to Dr. Jean Dodds at HemoPet. So you can just go to HemoPet. You can click on the titer area. You can print off the sheet, have your veterinarian fill it out and ship the blood directly to them. And if they're like, I won't do it, to see if they'll draw the blood or find a vet that will draw the blood for you and ship it yourself.
I do have to say, we had a vet that I asked if we could just draw the blood and they were very offended. Very offended.
Yep, that happens.
I didn't know that would be like offensive, but
it happens all the time. I have a lot of clients that we do certain specialized testing and, I have the lab work, I have everything set up. I have like how to draw the blood and they're like, I won't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to find a vet that does it then. And, so it can be hard sometimes, but I promise there are vets out there that are willing to work with you. It's just a matter of finding them.
We have Becky Graham in the house.
I was going to say, Becky had a question earlier.
Well, yeah, let's do this one first because I feel like this is a common question, right? The question is, doesn't some exposure to toxins, she also has an IBD or another question. Doesn't some exposure to toxins help build the immune system?
I love this question. And so this is where, like antioxidants. So we have this entire thing called hormesis, where we're actually like stressing the body and it actually makes the body stronger. So toxins, I wouldn't necessarily
say
Yeah, I wouldn't say like you should expose yourself to like known toxins like heavy metals and cleaning chemicals, and like don't recommend that. We already have enough of that without like actively seeking out those things. I mean, here's a crazy fact. 90% of our rainwater has glyphosate or Roundup in it across the world. So every time it rains, you're probably being rained on by glyphosate. There's also microplastics that we're ingesting all the time. So yeah,
no more dancing in the rain.
well, you can, but just detox yourself after, right? Like, so, you know, there's a time and a place for the joy you get from dancing in the rain. Okay, another like random fact.
Okay.
When I found out I was going to vet school in New Zealand when I was in my undergrad, I literally danced in the fountain at Notre Dame University.
Stop!
That is the best fact ever.
So that was probably full of like all sorts of gross stuff and like
God literally only knows.
Probably
Who
urine.
knows? I've survived so far though, so we're doing okay.
Wow.
So that probably built up my immune system.
I think they were saying it was like an inside scoop with Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib like a couple years ago or something. And they were talking about the like how even like not showering can build your immune system.
Yes, totally.
Build the microbiome because
yes.
and I was
That's
like
100% right. I know you're like it's fine. It'll be fine. Okay. But that's true. Like when we think about it, think about the ecosystems, right? We have this outside ecosystem. So I have like my room, I have the environment outside, but also my skin has a microbiome. My mouth is a microbiome. My hair, like everything has its own set of bacteria. And what's happened, and this is a huge issue with the world today, is we've overcleaned stuff. Like we've sterilized soil, you know, using too many herbicides, pesticides. Thank you, Monsanto. And so we have literally 60 crop cycles left before we run out of food because the soil is not healthy. It's turned into literally dirt and dust. And so we've affected the ecosystem. This is why there's so many people talking out about this. And it's very important that we wake up to it because that's crazy. That's within our lifetime, like potentially. And so that's an ecosystem. If we're like cleaning ourselves with all sorts of chemicals, that's going to affect our overall health. It's the same with our pets. That's why we talk about not bathing them too frequently and, you know, making sure we're supporting a healthy ecosystem on their skin. And so we can do a lot of damage if we're making the environment too clean. It can sterilize the gut. We're finding that kids are born without the appropriate types of bacteria. Like this is crazy. And so they don't have that diversity of different types of bacteria. The same with our pets. I mean, thank goodness Animal Biome's here to like test cats and dogs stool samples so you can get an idea of what their microbiomes look like. And any pet parent here can test for that. And I get surprised when I see pets that have a normal microbiome. That's how common it is when we see dysbiosis and that upset balance of good to bad bacteria.
Talking about that, Bex has another question. Bex, we love you so much. Why would our cats all
we
of a
got to
sudden...
meet Becky this
we got
weekend,
to meet
by the
Becky
way.
Graham.
Awesome.
We went out to like an epic dinner. Sushi.
It was
amazing.
It was as amazing as you would think it would be to meet Becky Graham. It was amazing. Why would our cats all of a sudden have an upset tummy as a result of good food that has been fed to them for a long time?
So I would say, is it one and done? I mean, that can happen to us. So if we have an upset tummy and it's a one-time thing, I wouldn't be stressing about it. If it turns into something that's constantly happening and we're finding like, oh, why are they sensitive now? Okay, I'd be looking at what's going on in the microbiome. I'd be looking at what's going on with emotional health. Did something change? Do they seem more stressed? Do I feel more stressed? Did I start doing something? The what was that?
You go out of town.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how microbiome impacts mental health. And I think there's so many things that are interconnected. I know with our Pooh Bear, when we go out of town, there is a flare-up.
We know it's going to happen.
We know it's going to happen. I don't know. It's not like we should stop our lives to, but better managing that maybe, or understanding that maybe we don't need to freak out about this because it could be Jay has stress flare-ups that affect her internal
exactly
as well.
It
Yeah.
commonly, so a lot of times too, our health conditions are affecting our cats too, or dogs. And I find that with a lot of my patients, they have the same health problems that, the pet has. And it's this interplay together that's happening.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you. Trisha is
with
here.
100
It's 100
stars.
stars for Dr. Katie Woodley.
Oh,
all right,
love you,
all right.
Trisha.
We love you.
Oh, and
I'll ask you a question about the food to you, Dr. Woodley.
yeah, stop
So,
drinking the Lysol back.
What you know about, because well, we've seen it ourselves, but when a cat is fed the same protein over a prolonged period of time, what happens then when it comes to the overall body condition immune response?
So it increases the risk for food sensitivities. And so this is,
Explain that though, because I think that everyone thinks, oh my God, I finally got my cat to eat this food.
I have to stay on the same diet for life.
I'm good.
So, okay, so I want people to think about yourselves, right? If you were to stay, okay, I always use the example of salad because, it's healthy, right? Usually depending what you're putting on it. But so unless you're going to McDonald's once again, but so your salad typically you've got your greens, you've got some vegetables added in there, like it's a good meal. And you're like, I really like this. I feel good on this. And you eat it every single meal, same exact thing, same vegetables. Maybe you add a little bit of like chicken to it or whatever you want to add, like protein wise, same meal though, same foods. The thing is you will over the long term develop nutritional deficiencies because you're not getting variety of foods. Also, what's happening, don't forget, we have 80% of the immune system sitting right there in the gut lining. And if we're not giving those microbes a diversity of foods to eat, because they need to eat things like fiber and other proteins, and they're digesting all sorts of things that are coming into that microbiome environment in the gut lining or the gut lumen, and doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not going to flourish. What's going to happen is we have less diversity. And then what happens? The bad bacteria start overgrowing. What do? They start releasing toxins. So we have these things, these toxins are things like lipopolysaccharides, so LPS particles. These are inflammatory chemicals. And what they do is they actually directly impact the gut lining and create inflammation. And so they're very harmful. They're very toxic. So we don't want the bad bacteria outnumbering the good. This is what happens with our cats that are constantly being exposed to the same exact protein, the same exact brand, the same exact foods. And so this is why variety is so key, because we need to feed that diverse ecosystem in your cat's gut. And we need also the different nutrients, the different vitamins, and the different minerals that are going to help support optimal gut health, optimal immune health, optimal nerve health, optimal, they're producing hormones that are going to be directly impacting, the HPA axis. So directly affecting thyroid, adrenals, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, that's all interconnected. And so by feeding the same food, yes, there's a time and a place. Sometimes we have to do things like elimination diets, or we have to settle the storm, right? If we're going through a flare up of something, calm it down, heal why things are overreacting, and then start integrating in variety with the diet. That's really, really important. And it's when we do it, I do it every single day with my cats. And sometimes I'm like, oops, they got a little bit of diarrhea. We're going to rein that back in. So it's something that I always do with my own patients and cats.
Well, two things. Becky's got another good
Becky.
question. Thank you so much, Bex. Cheers. I think that inflammation for so many of us pet parents is a benign word, because I feel like they're like, oh, it's just inflammation.
I just dripped red wine on
oh
my
my
shirt.
God.
I can't see it, so you're good.
I missed my mouth.
It's below the fold. So
it's below the fold.
We're good. We're good. But I think that that's something really important. Inflammation is such a precursor to so many bigger issues. So I think that understanding that inflammation is not benign, that when it
I will touch on that, because here's the thing. Inflammation is important. Acute inflammation is necessary. So say you cut yourself, like your cat gets a wound or whatever. You need that acute inflammation. So you get the redness that allows. So what happens then is you have inflammatory cells, you have inflammatory mediators like, hey, something's here. We need the white blood cells. And, we need phagocytosis to bind and digest the bacteria and all that stuff that shouldn't be there and clear it up. And then what happens?
Way big words.
So anyways, okay. So essentially like Pac-Man cells, they come and they eat the bacteria. So that's like phagocytosis.
Phagocytosis?
Phagocytosis. They eat things. They're digesting. Pac-Man cells. So they come in, they do their job. And then what happens, right? The wound heals. The inflammation goes away. The problem we have today with people and pets is that we have chronic inflammation. So inflammation is not resolving. And so the body's constantly like, oh, send in more reinforcements. Keep going. This isn't working. Let's ramp it up. And the immune system gets overstimulated and eventually the immune system breaks. That's when we see autoimmune disease. That's when we see cancer. That's when we see all of these chronic health issues. And once again, going back to the very beginning, we have the spectrum. We have really healthy, right? Where we acute inflammation, resolve it. Down here, we have really bad chronic inflammation not being resolved. Now we have chronic illness, eventually death. And your pet will be somewhere on this spectrum, depending on how you are optimizing those 5 pillars of health. That is why we don't want to wait for symptoms to occur and why preventative care is so important. Those weepy eyes, that sneezing, that vomiting every now and then, those are symptoms. Once again, that is the check engine light. You have to listen, or eventually it will make you listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. We're getting a couple questions.
Yeah.
Eugenia.
Eugenia.
With 200 stars.
Is it Eugenia or Eugenia?
Eugenia.
Thank you so much for joining.
So Madison is asking, how often should I swap proteins and Tiki Cat? And then I want to put this one up because it's the same question.
Let's go. Oh, it's the same question?
Same question,
okay.
kind of, essentially. But Rob, my man Rob, said, getting the freeloaders, those are his cats, off the prescription diet racket, finally, and hitting them with a regular variety of 3 different brands and their variety packs of wet foods. Thanks to Sissy Lopez for the advice. Thank you, Sissy. This is the question, though, that we're looking at. How much variety should I be aiming for? That's Madison's question. That's Rob's question.
Yeah. How often should I be swapping
What
protein?
is your advice for that?
So this is something where I don't think there's a specific answer, which makes it a little bit harder. I think it does depend on the individual cat and like their sensitivity for their GI health. So like for my own cats, a lot of times they're getting different proteins and different types of food and different brands, like potentially like between like breakfast and dinner. They tolerate that. They don't have loose stool. They don't have gassiness. They're still eating their food. So it depends. And this is where assessing like the pet in front of you, like, okay, they're doing well with this. Let's try this. Where I think if you're integrating in, like you have, so for Rob, he has 3 different brands, a variety packs of wet food. So if you're doing like a rotation a couple times a week and you're rotating those proteins. So let's say you have chicken, you have a beef, you have a turkey. So, one day they're getting chicken, the next day maybe they're getting turkey, the next day they're getting beef. And what that's going to do is it's also going to help make it less likely that they're getting a food sensitivity or they're going to have a health issue develop. So if they can tolerate that, meaning no gas, no GI symptoms, then do that. If you find that they start getting softer stool, then I would stick with one protein for like 3 to 5 days and then rotate and see how they do. And also see what brands do they do better with. Because keep in mind the formulations of the foods, a lot of times, especially like if we're using wet foods, we're potentially going to have different amounts of like fats or fiber content. And sometimes there'll be things like your carrageenan thrown in. So this is something we always talk about looking at ingredient lists. Is there a lot of pea protein? Are there foods that are potentially sprayed with glyphosate? So those are all like legumes would be a big source that I wouldn't be feeding a lot of because we know that it tends to be higher in glyphosate or Roundup because of the way that it's processed. So you want to avoid those foods. So reading that, but honestly, like the rotation is key. As long as we're not feeding the same food for months and months on end, the same protein, that is what I want to like really emphasize tonight, is getting in some of the rotation. See what works for your best for your cat and what they feel best with. That's really, really important.
I love it.
Pam has a really good question here.
We get this question more often than we would like, actually.
Yeah.
So please. She said, my cat was diagnosed with asthma when she was 2. Are there any alternative treatments for asthma? I'm concerned about long-term steroid use for treatment. She is also on prescription urinary food for treatment of bladder stones.
This is
that's hard. Yeah. So definitely. So I use Chinese herbal medicine, and there's definitely herbs that we use to help with asthma, depending on the different patterns that are associated with that pet. So that's how Chinese herbal medicine works, is we're looking at the different patterns. So the fact that we're having a bladder issue, also we're having a lung issue, is going to dictate, depending, like different types of herbal medicines, but 100%. Now, one of the things that a lot of pet parents, especially cat parents, don't realize is that you can train your cat to use an inhaler. So you're less likely to, so AeroCat is what it's called. So you can ask your veterinarian about that. And what it's going to do is it's going to be a more localized steroid treatment. And you can train your cat to use a little inhaler that goes over their face. And it's amazing. And you're less likely to have systemic side effects from the steroid because it's going directly to the lungs and it's not being absorbed systemically. So I always recommend that option while you're looking at, okay, maybe let's partner with a Chinese herbal medicine doctor to figure out these different patterns. I know there's also homeopathy remedies that can be used too, because it's working on those imbalances that are present. Asthma is an imbalance. So the fact that we have bladder stone issues, so I don't imagine it maybe struvite stones. It's hard to say. This is where looking at the microbiome, looking at the stress levels, looking at the environment, looking at the toxins that are in the body. But there's a lot of different things you can do from a natural perspective. And I've treated a lot of cats with asthma, and they've been able to get off their steroids, or at least to a really low dose where it's not going to create a long-term health issue and side effects for them. So there is definitely hope. Pam, go to ahvma.org, so American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association.org, and you can search for a holistic veterinarian that's near you if you're in the States. I'm not sure if you're in the States, but that's a great way to find a vet to partner with.
Well, I do have to say it's very interesting with these two specific ailments. We recently on our podcast interviewed Dr. Amaya Espindola, and she's out of Spain, and she's a holistic cat vet, specifically for cats. And we asked her what are some of the common issues that you see? And she said asthma and cystitis are 2 of the very common issues that are in her practice always rooted back to
an imbalance.
And well, all of them, but rooted back to emotional health, right? Rooted back to that, with to behavior, to emotional health is what she's that's about. And I was like, really, asthma? Yeah. Cystitis, everybody knows.
I know obesity, sure, but stress. Asthma?
But asthma, and she was like, yes, and she talked a little bit about it, and it's just very interesting that we commonly see so many cases where we're seeing both of those in one. And then she brought up that she sees it as a lot of rooted in in a more emotional, stressful.
Yeah. One of the things that's really interesting, so one of the things I see with asthma, so the connection in Chinese medicine where we have the lung is directly connected to the large intestine, constipation issues. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't know if Pam's cat also has any constipation issues. That is super common where we start seeing those issues. And then also too, we end up seeing skin issues because there's another direct connection to the skin with those different meridians in Chinese medicine. And so this is where this is why I talk about 5 pillars, because it is all interconnected. And so when we look at Pam's cat, asthma and prescription diet, bladder stones, my gosh, it's so stressful too. But this is where we can look at and assess each of those pillars of health to see, okay, are we actually addressing physical health? Maybe we need to do more environmental enrichment. Maybe we need to assess emotional health. Maybe, once again, I always go back to the people because I just like know how I feel, like stress levels. It's stressful. And I know a lot of my clients are stressed and a lot of my friends and family are stressed. And so it's something that everyone's stressed. And how are we managing it? And like, so that's something where being able to like, okay, physical health, tick, gut health, nutrition, tick, emotional health, tick, immune health, tick, environmental health, tick, or you can go, I can do better in that aspect. I need to clean this up. I need to detox. I need to support liver health. You know what? I have heavy metals in my cat. We test that with like hair tissue mineral analysis tests. Every pet has heavy metals. I can tell you that right now. Every single pet has heavy metals, but what's the level and how serious do we need to do the detox, right? It gives us that indicator like, okay, we need to dive in real quick. I had a pet recently so typically most pets come back with like mercury and aluminum. Those are the two that are commonly high on every single pet that we test. And so I'm not surprised when we see them. And typically they're like, aluminum is the biggest one, and it's like around 1 to maybe 4. I had a dog come back the other day at 75. And here's the thing. You know what? I wasn't excited about it, but I was like, that's the problem. This dog has an autoimmune disease. It has ear vasculitis that has been a pain in the butt to resolve. Now I know why it's not healing. It has a heavy metal toxicity.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, boom, there we go. Like,
it's exciting because it is all about getting to the root of something. And I think
it is. We would have never known. You would have just.
How do you find out where it's coming from?
So once again, this is where it depends, like how well are these pets detoxing? So this is like, I'm super fascinated by all this stuff and like the human side and like methylation and the genes and like how well do you detox? Like this is just so fascinating to me, and it applies to our pets too. And there's not as much information on our pets, unfortunately, but of course it's going to play a part. So heavy metals can be born with them. It can come from the water. Lead is everywhere. I mean, heavy metals are everywhere. Aluminum and mercury vaccines are a source of that. Unfortunately, food can be a source of that. So this is where we start looking at, okay, well, what are we doing? What are we feeding? What does the environment look like? Are you filtering the water? What does your water source look like? If you're in the States, go to ewg.org and type in your zip code, and you can actually get a good breakdown. And if you're Environmental Working Group, so EWG. It's amazing, and it will scare the heck out of you, I promise. But
we're like, you can look it up online. You just do a Google search. I'm not sure where.
Pam is here. She said too many vaccines. Yeah.
See? Yeah. So that's the thing. And but the thing is too, is keep in mind, like it can be passed on through, like they can be born with heavy metal issues. Like I have 8-week-old puppies that haven't had vaccines that we test, and they have heavy metals. So this is one source, and it's a common source. And I think it's honestly why we see such high aluminum and mercury. But this is where once we know, then we can start like binding it. We can detox. We can support the systems. I mean, so where do these things get out? Skin, gut health, kidneys, bladder, liver. These are all the important systems that are going to help support detoxing. And if they're not optimized, those toxins aren't going to get out. They're going to be recirculated, reabsorbed, and stored again. And that's where we find like the frustration, and you stay on that vicious treadmill. And so, but that's where the power is.
Yeah. Bladder and GI tract, I do have to say that, like for, I've been taking chlorella for like the past,
let's not get graphic.
couple weeks.
And it makes it go.
Definitely makes
it cleans you. It's a cleanser. But no, chlorella spirulina, honestly, the research that I've been seeing too, it like honestly, getting that into your pets, your dogs and your cats. So we know that those help support immunoglobulin A in the gut lining, which is essential for the mucus layer, so the chemical barrier in the gut lining, part of the immune system in the gut. Very important. There's numerous studies that show it helps that, but it also binds to heavy metals. It provides a source of nutrients. Like, it does so many things, and so many cats accept it. And you can use, our good friend Julianne Thorne from Naturally Cats, and using self-selection, you can crush up that stuff and put it down for your cats, add a little bit of water. And I won't forget, like, I was like, my cats don't take it. And I did it the other day, and I crushed up some spirulina chlorella tablets. They were human products. That's fine to use. And Moki devoured it. And then he's been fine since. And I was like, he needed it. So, and he was fine. Didn't have diarrhea. He just needed that, and he knew it. And I provided it to him. And so there's so many different amazing ways that we can give things that we need to our cats.
I love that.
Dr. Woodley, I
we've
can't
been
believe
talking
we've been here
over
for
an hour. We've only been here for 15
really
minutes.
Quickly though, I have to ask, because we have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we're good.
Real quick, let's try to do 10 more minutes, maybe. Georgia said, I'm fostering 12 kittens, 2 mom cats, and my cat is really upset about it. She's attacking all of my cats. How can I calm her down? The kittens and mama cats are in a separate room, so that's really important. But I would say, for this kind of situation, well, Dr. Woodley,
I know, seriously, like, no, I'd love to hear what you have to say too, because I mean, you've probably been through some of this.
I think scent is so important for our cats. Yeah. I think that it is one of the biggest things, and I know that they might be in separate areas, but that scent is still smell very each other for important. Sure. So I might try taking your cat to a place where she has a sanctuary area away from that closed door. And there are natural calmers out there, but also for a situation like this where you are going to be fostering on a regular basis, which you've got 12 kittens and 2 mama cats. God bless you.
I know.
I think it might be a good idea to actually look into a feline behaviorist that can kind of help walk you through what your cat is experiencing and how better to handle your existing homestead as you help these babies through.
But environmental enrichment is also just really, really helpful. And it's crazy to me, Georgia. Routine. Like when we learned from Dr. Marcy Koski at Feline Behavior Solutions, when we learned what a confidence building session was, where it's like literally you take your cat alone away from any other cat in the home, and you engage in playtime with them for 15, 20 minutes even, but 100% like engaged.
No
so put
phone,
your phone
no
down,
TV,
put your
no
TV,
other cats,
like
no
literally you are just engaged with your cat. Their confidence will build by like a 1,000%. And it was like, that seems way too easy and cheap. Not gonna happen. Yep. Oh my God. We took Pooh Bear in the room the first time. We took Pooh Bear in the room by himself. We engaged in playtime 100%. He walks out of that room, and both our Black Panthers walked by him, who he hated. They walked by him, and he would always, at the time, he would swat, he would hiss every time he even saw them. And they walked by, and he's like, and walks by. Like, literally, it was like, that was 20 minutes of our time.
Well, and I think, the attacking thing is really something that we have to, when we use words like my cat is attacking this cat, or my cat is being a bully, or my cat is being aggressive. I think it's so important to take a compassionate step back and understand that behavior is fear. They're feeling very insecure. And our cats are little predatory beasties. Yeah, they're amazing hunters, but they're also prey. And so much of what we've learned through feline behaviorists is how to be compassionate towards behaviors that we tend to humanize, right? And think that it's being offensive or abrasive, but really it's them protecting themselves because we're not doing that for them.
Right.
So
thank you, Becky.
Love it. Okay.
She knew that everybody, like, I'm sitting over here drinking, but
Dr. Katie.
Dr. Katie really needed a drink.
Yeah, no, I love all that, and that's so important. That's why I know you have so much knowledge, so I wanted to hear what you had to say. Some of the things that I go to are something like the herbs to like help calm them, and this is where the herb garden has been amazing in our household, because our cats have gotten stressed with the addition of like a third cat, and so being able to put down a little towel or a blanket in a private, quiet area that's safe for them. So going along the lines of what you're talking about, and you know, the the easiest herb to start with is like dried valerian root.
Which stinks to high hell.
It's not that bad. It's not too bad, but
It's
it is. It's kind of stinky sock smell, but
Your
my
face
cats love it and they eat
are-
it and they like sit on it and they're like little valerian fiends and they just love it. And so this is where I love the whole like self-selection idea. So you're not stressing them out more by trying to give something in them and like medicate them and stress them out that way, where you can provide that quiet space, put down some dried herbs and allow them to self-select what they actually need. One of the things that you can also use that I learned from dear friend Julianne Thorne is rosebuds. So if there is like they need some like release, and one of the things I found, it's fascinating. He doesn't self-select now, but our Moki cat, who's our cerebellar hypoplasia cat, who, you know, he's bless him, he is the cutest little thing, but he can be a feisty little beast at times. And he would self-select rosebud, and it was fascinating. And so putting down different options, they may not choose them. That's something to be aware of, and it can be frustrating. But valerian, every time I put it down, like they like go for it, like, you know, little hawks. It's like
to our dear friend Julianne Thorne,
Naturally Cats.
UK.
everyone. Oh, I don't have it by me. I usually have it by me. Her book, Aromatic Cats. Aromatic Cats. Every single cat parent should get that book because it's the easiest way to give like supplements, right? And herbs and things that their body needs to them. And I have found ever since I met Julianne last year, I use that for every single cat patient. It is incredible. I use it in my house. I sit there and I like watch them. It's incredible to watch your cat self-select. And so valerian, your rosebuds, angelica root opens them up to healing. Also, your chamomile is another great calming herb that you can add. And all you need is like a little like teaspoon of herbs down or a tablespoon, and you can put it in different corners of the like a towel and just let them do their thing. And it's incredible.
We have like a rug. Well, we have a few rugs, but
We use the Ripple rug.
We'll use that. We've even used it.
Yeah, no, I do too. I put stuff on the Ripple rug. I mean, my house is a disaster. It's like herbs everywhere. So Moki, because he has cerebellar hypoplasia.
Cheers. Forget to sip. There you go, girl.
I have to top it back up. So Moki, who has cerebellar hypoplasia, like he's not coordinated. And so literally I posted things on social media. He like gets caught in the blanket and it just like herbs are everywhere and he's covered in his body. And I'm like, oh, he's self-selecting all of them. But you know, like he's getting all of them, the benefits of everything. But it's so neat. It's so natural. Like it's a natural way of like giving medicine to our pets and allowing them to choose what their body needs.
Yeah. And for those of you guys that are like, if you're in the States, you can also go to judymorgan.com.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And get the get Naturally
Cats.
Has
the herb gardens from our dear Julianne.
Just a herb gardens.
Really opened up our minds as far as that goes, and I really can't be underestimated because it really is such a valuable thing. We see the impact it has on our cats, and it really you're so right.
It is. It's quite amazing. When
it's amazing.
Out of town now, we put those herbs down in our.
I've got like them all over. My poor husband. He's like, "How many do we need?" And I'm like, "A couple more."
When are we going to vacuum?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like next day. I'm like, maybe we should vacuum.
Like, no, they'll self-select. So
Laura Lee, hey Laura Lee, you love the dedicated feline enthusiast in the house. She said, since the weather is getting warmer, mine are not liking lamb anymore. Switch to duck and they love it. Is this because of the cooler/warmer food energy?
100%. Lamb is very warm and hot. So you have cats that have allergy issues or don't tolerate the heat. So we always think about cats like sitting on heater vents, right? Like not every cat will sit on a heater vent. There are cats that are like going to choose like cooler areas in the house. They're going to lay on hardwood floors. Our Tico cat tends to like cooler proteins. And so lamb would not be my choice for him. And it sounds like Laura Lee, like your cats are self-selecting a cooler protein. So duck is cooling. turkey is cooling, rabbit is cooling energetically. So this, when I say like cooling, this is looking at foods and the energetics. So looking at it from a traditional Chinese food therapy perspective. So this is where we can, this is another element of healing your pets and like deciding like how do we help support their bodies. And food is medicine. Once again, another reason why, like, and cats are amazing at deciding like what is best for them. But if we don't allow that choice and we don't pick up on it, sometimes what we can do is we can actually fuel like the heat. And we're giving foods that are actually increasing the heat. So chicken is warming. So sometimes this can be, you know, a lot of people are against chicken. Chicken can be a great chi tonic. So chi is energy, and can be very useful and helpful, especially with pets that, you know, are going through a lot of health concerns. So it's not always a bad protein. It's the processed chicken that's the problem. But if you have a cat that has allergies, ear infections, tends to overheat easily, chicken would not be my first choice for a protein.
Eugenia, who sent stars earlier, this is an intense question. We get this question a lot about putting our cats under. She said, "Hi, ladies. Any advice for me regarding a senior cat, 13 years old?
It was
not
chronic
senior till they're 20.
pancreatitis.
Chronic pancreatitis. Last flare up being in January, going in for a dental cleanup in a few weeks. He has had multiple teeth extractions over the years and will likely need more. Anything I should look out for? Any additional pre-op labs other than the standard ones that should be done? I want to make sure it's safe to put him under." We get this question a lot
so
cats.
Yeah,
with,
especially
anesthesia,
recently, we've been getting
with the piggybacked health issue on top, whether it's kidney disease or pancreatitis. What say you?
So definitely with pancreatitis, for one, we need to be supporting gut health. So a lot of times I don't know why, but I hear a lot of vets that say don't use digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes can actually help like decrease the stress on the pancreas. So this is where optimizing gut health. So let's say this is my cat. This is my 13-year-old cat who has pancreatitis, and I'm like preparing the body to do as well as possible for dentals, because dentals are important, especially when we have inflammation, so that we reduce that inflammation and clear up any infections. So I would potentially be doing an animal biome test. I want to know what's the level of dysbiosis. Do I need to resolve this first with their fecal transplant capsules or a fecal transplant? Those are options for anyone in the States. So that would be number one. I want to know what's going on gut health wise, microbiome. Number two, I would be doing a GI panel with like Texas A&M. So that's going to look at more specifically, is B12 deficient? Do we have low folate? Do we have potentially a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO infection? So not everyone can always do all these tests. And I totally understand that. Like there's cost associated with this, but this would be like ideal world. So I want to make sure you have those options. So those would be the things I'd be looking at. If you need to feel like there's major concerns, or, you know, the pancreatitis is really severe, this is where doing an abdominal ultrasound to get an idea of like level of inflammation also. But typically your GI panel it checks a spec FPL, which is specific for pancreatitis. So it's going to look at the level of inflammation in the pancreas. So you may not have to do an abdominal ultrasound. Now, if I was like, I'm concerned about cost, what do? I'd put them on digestive enzymes. I would make sure we're supporting microbiome. I'd be looking at a good broad spectrum probiotic that I know they tolerate. There's great brands out there. Adored Beast has a great healthy gut option that you can use. Dr. Mercola has a complete probiotic that you could potentially use. I'd be starting this weeks prior, because you want to make sure that your cat tolerates it before you put them under a stressor with anesthesia.
What do you think about spirulina beforehand?
100%. So this is where also this is where when we look at detox, and this is something that I talk a lot about with our blueprint program, is like, when do you start things and how long do you continue it? Is your spirulina or your green supplements are going to be started typically, like you can always start them like the day 2 days before. Now, I recommend them routinely, like where you're giving them as like a pulse therapy. So you're using them frequently throughout, taking breaks and then restarting it. But definitely, if we know that the body is going to have to process anesthesia, process drugs, process medications, pain medications, potentially antibiotics, then yes, start them on spirulina, chlorella. Those are your green supplements that are going to support detox and gut health. So start them on that. You want to continue that through, if they're on medications, continue it all the way through till they're off of medications. And then also too, this is where if they're going to go on certain drugs, like your antibiotics or things like that, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a beneficial yeast, can be really powerful in helping. What was that?
Say that word again. Don't be
Saccharomyces boulardii.
All of us are going back.
Yeah.
Georgia gave 410 stars.
Plus another 100 stars.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks, Georgia.
Yeah, and I will say to was that Georgia that had the question? That we had a cat. This was years ago. We had a cat that was 18 years old, and he had a dental issue. And it was painful. We could see it. Like it got that bad, right? Because our cats are stoic, so you don't even like know that they have a dental issue until it's bad. And it was bad. He was like, every time he would eat, he would paw at his mouth. He knew that it was bad. We took him to 3 different vets, and they said, we were like, he needs a dental. And they all said, he's 18 years old. We can't put him on.
Age is not a disease.
Right. And
age is not a disease.
Say it aloud.
Age is not a disease. Here's the thing. Before I started my own business, the Natural Pet Doctor, I worked at a clinic where we did so many senior dentals, and we did not lose a single patient. Here's the thing. So for everyone here, if you have a pet that has a health condition that you are like really worried about, they are high risk anesthetic, ask if you can bring in a anesthesiologist. We used to bring in an anesthesiologist all the time, and she would sit there. She'd like create the treatment plan, what drugs we're using, and she's like managing all that stuff. And it was so great because I could focus on doing the dental, removing the teeth, taking the x-rays. She was focused on the managing the anesthesia, the blood pressure, what was going on. So kidney disease, heart disease. Just because your pet has an underlying health condition does not mean that they can't tolerate anesthesia.
Or that they're a certain age. Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, well, no, I know they hit like 10 and it's like no more anesthesia. Like, right. It's ridiculous. Like, so now they get a tooth abscess and they can't eat. Like, now you have to put them down because of a tooth abscess. Like,
because you won't put them under to take quality of life. So this is the story. So as it ended, we finally found a veterinarian, a feline veterinarian. I know. Oh my God. A feline veterinarian.
Trish, are you okay?
So we finally found a feline veterinarian, and we said, listen, we've taken him to all of these vets. He is in pain. And she said, his heart is healthy. His immune system is healthy. He was being fed even at that time. We had just recently switched to a raw diet. He was the reason that we switched to a raw diet
for kidney disease.
And she was like, his immune system is healthy. His heart is healthy. I'm okay with it if you're okay with it. If you sign the papers, I will do it. And we were like, please do it. Yeah. He was almost like a few days away from being 22 years old. And his last years of life were
quality,
so much more.
He felt comfortable. That's the thing. I think it's important that, you mentioned like having the conversation, right? So, sitting down with your veterinarian and going through like the pros and cons once again. Like, this is what's going on with my pet. Age is not a disease. And so just because they're a senior does not mean that we can never do anesthesia ever again. Because here's the thing. I find so many like pet parents wait until I don't want to do it. It's not that bad. And then it gets to a point where they're not eating. And now maybe they have a heart disease or they have some other medical condition that increases their anesthetic risk. And it becomes a lot more stressful, Also, because we waited until like the dental disease progressed, now they need more teeth extracted and it takes longer. So they have to be under anesthesia longer. If you would just have plaque and tartar buildup, let's do it now. Let's clear it up. Let's like make it nice and quick. And then we're done. And then you probably potentially have like 3-5 years or never again you need a dental. So Georgia, you're amazing.
Georgia, you're awesome for Dr.
Georgia,
Katie Woodley.
You
All
are.
right, we
Okay,
have
one
to
more
wrap
question.
it up.
One more question because it's a specific question, and then I want to.
And then I have to pee.
Okay. Are lasting, everlasting. I love that. Is the Animal Essentials milk thistle that Dr. Woodley recommends safe for cats with kidney issues, considering it has a high grain alcohol percentage, and even if it's listed as an inactive ingredient, has a very strong smell of alcohol? I'm not familiar with this.
So Animal Essentials, I thought use glycerin tincture, so I'd have to double check that.
Yeah.
I didn't remember. I
didn't think they used alcohol like. So I'd have to double check that. I might be wrong. I know a lot of their products use glycerine tinctures, which makes it easy to give to cats, which is why I love Animal Essentials. Here's the thing, everlasting. If you're worried about a product, you're worried about giving something that you should be fine, by the way. However, if there's concern, it's creating stress for you. That's important. That we've been talking about that all night.
Yep.
There are plenty of other milk thistle products that you can use. You can always use capsules. You can use
you can go to Whole Foods.
So you can use human products. So you don't have to use that product if it concerns you. That's the great thing. Like we have a lot of other options. I know Adored Beast has a liver tonic that you could use. It doesn't just have milk thistle, so it's a little bit stronger. But if you're concerned, like your cat is like stressed or sensitive, here's the thing. Sensitive cats start with 1/4 to a half dosage, see how they do for 3 to 5 days, and then go to like the regular dosage if they're doing okay. So
Rob
we're
is
here with.
Okay, we're wrapping this up, but I have to say this just on a little note of levity. Rob, thank you so much. So Becky had to leave, but she was talking about the confidence building sessions, and she said, I end up playing with myself when my cat stares at me like I'm.
Oh my God.
And Trisha said, I'd be staring too if I caught you playing with yourself.
I love you girls so much.
But Trisha said this.
Oh, Trisha, I love you.
So grateful to be able to work with her on a regular
So
basis.
let's wrap it up. Talking about.
I want to talk about what that means.
Program.
I love that you are literally taking your proactive pet care globally.
Yes, Dr. Katie Woodley is offering an amazing program that we are so grateful to be a part of. It is a blueprint program that is literally what we call insurance, right? So if you have cats, or especially if you have cats and dogs, you got us crazy cat people, we tend to have a lot of animals, right? Like you have that, and you want a blueprint, you want a veterinarian that you can know, love, and trust right there, that you can meet with every week, that you can be a part of, that you can ask questions to, and have so you don't have to try to scramble and find somebody close by.
You're an intimate teammate. I love that you provide.
Dr. Katie Woodley is doing. Okay, sorry.
But I love
it fast though, because my bladder is about to pop.
I love it. This is really this blueprint is a great word, and explain what that is, and what you offer, and what this is, and how people can see if they're a good fit for your program.
Yeah. So we talked about those 5 pillars of health, right? So how many people here have spent hours and hours researching, trying to figure out what the next step is for their cats? Yeah, we've all been there, right? How many people here have a supplement graveyard? Right? You open your drawer, you open your pantry, and you're like, I was literally at a client's house and she pulled out an entire Tupperware thing, and I was like, holy smokes, how many? Yeah, we've all been there, right? And so here's the thing, how amazing does it feel to be able to have someone help guide you on implementing those 5 pillars of health that are essential at healing your pets, but also maintaining optimal health? And that's why I created the Healthy Holistic Pet for Life Blueprint. So it essentially takes your dogs and your cats from kittens and puppies to seniors. But here's the thing, having the education is great, right? You've been there, you've been researching, but being able to get the guidance, get the support. So we have a community, and then also we do 2-hour weekly Q&As where you can ask questions and get guidance. And that's the key. And that's the thing that I found was missing through, like, you know, the crazy times we're in. So many pet parents couldn't get into the vet. So many pet parents don't have access to holistic pet care. You may not even have access to get into routine vet like visits with your normal veterinarian to ask those questions. So when you're asking like, well, what are titers? What, you know, what foods should I feed? What are good brands? How do I help? Like, should I be worried about the vomiting that my cat's showing? Those are all important questions. And those are answers that I provide through a program and supporting you and helping to guide you. And here's the thing. I wasn't like, I just want to create a program where you're like one and done. It's a lifetime program. So if you like me, you have me for life. So that's the thing. And what I love is that I get to know you personally. We get to know about your pets. And we get to help guide you. And so like Trisha saying that, like Madison, I love you. The Blueprint program is amazing. Like people that are in it, like I genuinely, this is why I created it, to give you the transformations to help your pets feel their best so that your cats live to be 30, your dogs live to be 20 to 30 years old, 40, you know, why not? And by getting guidance, support, having an amazing community of pet parents to help you, that I help guide you also. Like this is my light. This is my love. This is what lights me up every single day, is being able to see you get transformation. I can't even tell you the amount of times I cry when I open our community area and the Q&As. It's a safe space for you to ask questions about holistic pet care, because unfortunately what's happened is asking about holistic pet care has not become a safe space in the world that we live in. And so too many pet parents are sitting back wondering if what they're doing is actually working or if there's other ways to help their pets. And so what we do interviews with every single pet parent. And so there's a link that Jay and Adrian have that you can click through. You can schedule a call with me, and that way we see if you're a good fit for the program. Because honestly, if it's not a good fit for you, that's okay. But let's jump on a call and see if that works for you.
Yes, and
Trisha's
link
a
is in
fan.
the description if you guys want to qualify
Trisha,
and
What?
help pets live their best lives.
Dr. Katie, do you still have wine?
Oh, there's nothing.
I
There's
do actually. And I didn't drink that entire bottle this entire time. So I promise. And if I did, imagine when I'm not inebriated. No, just kidding. So just kidding.
My goal for today is to start you off with a full bottle, and we're an hour and a half in.
I know.
I'm so grateful for your time. I really am. I really feel you are so empowering. You're so compassionate. You're so inviting. I think that so often, so many of us are scared to ask questions or to try to, say, well, hey, I'm doing this. Is this okay? Like, it's very vulnerable, and you really do help give us that.
And meet everybody where they're at. And that's what's so, and you're so well-spoken. I hate you that you haven't gone through speaking
We asked
courses.
Dr. Katie, we were like, hey, where'd you learn how to talk that good? We need to do that.
I want the course that
And
you
she was
took.
like,
She's like, never took a course.
Anyway.
I didn't do that.
I
haven't taken a course.
You have such a gift. You have such a gift. You have such a passionate gift to help our
so beautiful
our animal companions.
Yeah, our favorite human on the planet. Thank you really so much.
Make it so digestible to us. Thank you for making this. You give us baby steps, and I love that you've really spent so much of your life creating this program that couldn't be such a gift to so many of us. So thank you so much. That link, if you guys want to see if you're a good fit for Dr. Katie,
is in the description here.
It's in the description here tonight. We're going to wrap it up, and we can't wait for next time already.
I know.
Thank you, Trish, our VP of Life, hanging on in the back, running all the back end. God bless you. We went way over tonight, but
we went way over, but we love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to go pee. We will see you all.
Love you guys.
Bye, guys.